Hey guys, so today we are answering a subscriber question, and the question in question is, Frederick, what do you prioritize when delivering on time? So let's get into it. So, you may have heard me mention a few times that the hands down most important thing there is to meet the deadline. Nothing you do, nothing that you think, nothing that you feel matters more than the deadline. And the simple fact of the matter is that no matter how genius your code is, it has to work on time. That's bottom line. Everything else means absolutely nothing. So, in order for you to do this in an effective manner, you have to start considering something. And I think that this is something that is highly underappreciated for a lot of engineers in general. And I'll walk you through exactly what this is. But first and foremost, we need to make a few assumptions around the project itself. So number one is, the first assumption we're going to make is that we actually have people who know what they're doing. We are talking about, like, you have the skills within the team or whoever's going to do this to actually deliver on this. It's not something that is beyond you to do. That's number one. And the second assumption we're going to make is that you will have the resources that are needed in order to do this, because I can tell you right now, especially if you work with integrations and different other companies and things of this nature, your project delivery time can be delayed just simply because you need to know something at a given time, and whoever is in charge of answering your questions simply doesn't feel like sending back an email that day. They might be golfing, they might go on vacation or be doing something else. They just don't have time for you. So something that should take 5 minutes to answer or do will take a few days. Can be even worse than that sometimes, but that is the reality. But let's just assume for the sake of argument that this is not happening. Right. So the first and foremost thing that you need to prioritize when you want to make sure that you're delivering on time, and it's the only thing that truly matters, I will say, apart from actually delivering the thing, is the scope, time estimation. That is going to be the most important thing that you can possibly do. The old saying goes, if you have if you have 2 days to chop down a tree, you should spend the first day grinding the axe or sharpening the axe, and that is exactly what you need to do. So before you start a project, if you just dive in, and this is true for when you just write code in general, if you just start working and then you think about what all the steps are going to be and what the investment is and what you kind of need to do in order to make those steps happen, you are going to fail, my friend. It's very likely, or rather, you're going to fail more than you're going to succeed. And that's it. The simple matter is that if your stakeholders come to you and say that, hey, we need this feature, and then you just say, yeah, sure, when do you need it? And they just give you an estimation, and they say, yeah, and then you kind of roughhouse it and say, yeah, I think that sounds feasible. The likelihood of you failing is really high. And the bigger the project and the longer the scope, the harder it is to accurately time estimate things. This is why agile development became a thing, because people realized that if you have a project that is going to span 2 years, it's actually very hard to start by saying, oh, it's going to take exactly 2 years. It's very hard to estimate it's like such a massive project. It's much easier to estimate a small project of, say, a few weeks or something of that nature and get the time to be correct. And the sum of all these smaller projects add up to, hey, the big project, but it's probably going to be more on time. And there's other things, other benefits as well, but that's a different discussion. So start first and foremost by getting really good at estimating how much work something is. If you're not doing that at your project or your company, you should be doing that immediately. It's better for absolutely everybody, because the problem of delivering on time is that you will have unforeseen events. You will need to give a rough estimation that is still fairly relevant, because time estimation is a thing that you're going to have to do. I know that sucks, and a lot of developers have a hard time doing this, but you're going to have to do it. And if you want to give accurate numbers to your stakeholders, you have to sit them down and you have to walk through all the steps with them. And then you have, because their expectations might be warped as well. Remember, they are likely themselves thinking, okay, this is this happens all the time. They most likely have several projects that's going to go on, or something's going to happen with them, and you basically want, as a stakeholder, you want to know, okay, what's the likelihood of this succeeding? Like, if one thing takes 6 months and another thing takes 3 months, then maybe you should go with the 3-month thing, or it's a priority thing for them, right? So for them it is very important to know, like, have an accurate deadline, right? So because the thing is, if they have unreasonable expectations and they come in and they say that, hey, yeah, we need this thing done by tomorrow, and then you go, no, this is going to take 3 weeks to do. There's nothing you can do about that. It doesn't. I mean, even if you were a 100x programmer, you cannot solve that problem in that time. That is a problem on their side. If they have not given you, like, they need to come to you with their problem and have it solved, and give you the time that is actually needed to do this. It doesn't matter. I mean, they can kick and fuss and scream as much as they want. I mean, if you have an unreasonable expectation or an unreasonable deadline, there's nothing you can do about that. But if you actually sit down and you explain why this is going to take this amount of time, you at least give them the option of hiring more people, or like having other ways of solving this problem. So that is why this is the number one thing. I cannot stress it enough. You need to truly set the expectations correctly. Don't be nice. Don't try to, oh yeah, maybe if we work really hard, we could. Don't do that. Don't do that. All you're doing is shooting yourself in the foot. All you're doing is setting false expectations, and when you can't deliver, it's going to be your ass on the line, because it's going to be your manager's ass on the line, and his or her stakeholders are going to hold them personally responsible. And depending on what type of project manager you have, they're either going to, well, fess up to that, or they're going to point directly to you and blame everything on the team. And that's pretty common for the career project managers. Anywho, so think about that. That's the absolute most important thing. The second thing that you need to consider is to consider, well, basically feature dropping, things of this nature. Because you are going to find that some things take longer than you expected. The better you are at and more investment you actually make in planning things out properly and grooming stories and all that good stuff, as I said, the likely you are to just be able to meet your deadlines. But if for some reason you can't, the second thing that is highest priority is to ship the value that is needed, the core features, the things that are going to bring the most amount of benefit. So it's vital that you always work on the most important thing first. That is the most critical thing. Never ever start by just working on there's always a priority. There's always something that is more valuable than something else from a feature delivery. That's why you always need to work on the thing that is most important. So the priorities should always be correct. You may have noticed now that I have at no point stated anything about unit testing. I haven't talked about quality assurance or anything like that. And the reason why I haven't done that is not because it's not important. It is because it's absolutely pointless in comparison to not meeting the deadline. So is creating a fancy implementation of a recursive something. Doesn't matter at all. You can if it stands between copy pasting every single line of code and not meeting the deadline, you need to copy paste every single line of code. I'm not saying that you should. I'm saying that delivering on time is a hell of a lot more important than anything else that you can think of. So what I want you to take away from this is, number one, when it comes to prioritizing things within a project, the first and foremost thing that you need to prioritize is the actual planning of the work. Because if you go in with false assumption, if the stakeholders have a deadline in mind and that is unfeasible, and you've never even talked about if it's feasible for you to deliver on according to this schedule, then you're gonna fail. Yeah, I mean, it doesn't matter how fast you write, you're gonna fail. So plan your stuff out properly. Take that time to do that. Grind your axe, then use it. Number one. Second thing is, make sure that you always work on the most important thing first. Because if something unexpected happens and you for some reason get delays, the most important thing is to have something to ship. You need to create some value. If you start working on all the things around the main features, that's not going to give you so much, because you can't just ship that and get a sensation of satisfaction from your stakeholders. They might expect more from you, but if they're not going to be able to get everything, at the very least they want the core stuff that they're after. That's at least how I think about it. Have a great day.